In 1824, Louis Braille's invention of the Braille system revolutionized access to education and literacy for the visually impaired. His invention allowed individuals with sight disabilities to exercise their right to knowledge and communication. His system led to a societal responsibility to incorporate Braille into many aspects of society, creating a more inclusive and accessible world for the blind. But where did the inspiration for Braille come from? Let me take you back to where it all began. In 1771, Valentin Aoui, a young French educator, was eating lunch at the Place de la Concorde in Paris. As he ate, he noticed an ensemble of people from the 15 Hospice for the Blind being ridiculed during the religious street festival, St. Ovid's Fair. They were wearing dunce caps and oversized cardboard glasses and were told to play instruments, creating a cacophony of unpleasant sounds. The audience was mocking them. Deeply shocked, Aoi became determined to work towards restoring dignity for the blind and ensuring their rights as members of the global community. 13 years later, in 1784, he took in a blind beggar boy named Francois Le Sueur and offered to pay the 16-year-old as much as he was making begging if he studied with him. 2 years later, after noticing how sensitive blind people are to touch, Aoi took letters, made them larger, and developed a process for embossing them, or raising bumps on the page in the form of letters. The Essai sur l'éducation des aveugles was printed in 1786, and it was the first book in embossed script for use of the blind. This system was the system that blind students in the Institut National des Jeunes Aveugles used for a long time until Charles Barbier, a former captain in Napoleon's army, came up with an idea. Night writing relied on a grid pattern consisting of 6 horizontal rows and 6 vertical rows, making 36 spaces in total. The words were spelled phonetically rather than letter by letter, and the number and orientation of the dots determined the sound each symbol made. Charles Barbier created night writing in 1815 because he thought that the method of reading by touch could be useful for people with visual impairments. Louis Braille got the idea for Braille when Charles Barbier presented his idea of night writing to the Institut National des Jeunes Aveugles, where a 12-year-old Braille was currently studying. After the idea was presented, Braille marveled at how much easier night writing was compared to the embossed print they had used before, but its flaws soon began to emerge. There were no punctuation marks. The system was phonetic, so blind children would never be able to spell properly, and there were no musical or math notations. Braille still saw the merits in the idea, though, and took on the responsibility of spending the next few years improving upon the design. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. After Charles Barbier presented his idea to the school, Louis Braille got to work on improving upon the design. First, he cut the grid in half. Instead of 12 dots now, there were 6, 2 horizontal rows and 3 vertical rows. This made Braille easier and quicker to read. 63 possible combinations in Braille can be made with the dots. Through this, Braille created an efficient communication system for blind people at just 15 years of age. Louis Braille took the tools that Charles Barbier used, a pointed stylus and a special ruler, and spent every bit of his free time for the next 3 years punching holes in paper and tinkering around with his own version of Barbier's night writing. Then, Braille made the system alphabetical instead of phonetic, and added numerical signs, punctuation, and digits. This was a key distinction between Barbier's and Braille's systems. Braille also loved music. He played the piano, organ, and cello. At the age of 19, he also incorporated musical notation into his system. Louis Braille explains all of this in his book, Method of Writing Words, Music, and Plainsong by Means of Dots, published in 1829. The Braille system was introduced to the kids in the Institut National des Jeunes Aveugles in about 1824, and now blind students didn't have to learn through the very slow process of tracing huge raised letters and numbers. All blind adults and children all over the world could learn to read and write and be integrated into society. They could get an education, employment, and all of the rights that sighted people got. In 1837, Précis sur l'histoire de France became the first full-length book to be published in Braille. Braille opened the doors for blind people to be integrated into society. Before, they were kept to second-hand knowledge, but now they could study, get an education, get jobs, and have access to all of the rights that were previously denied to them.
So I think, yes, there was a sense of the right to literacy. If there's a right to literacy, it has to be extended to everybody, whether they're deaf or blind.
Braille is used all over the world, since it's a code or a tactile alphabet that thousands of people can use in their respective languages. Helen Keller, for example, was the first blind deaf person to graduate college. She wrote several books and had a special typewriter in Braille. Helen Keller wrote an article about Louis Braille called Light Bearer to the World of Darkness, and she was taught Braille by her teacher, Anne Sullivan. She was even nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Did you know that there is even Braille music? Ray Charles used Braille music and became one of the most widely known pianists. In 2019, the United Nations also proclaimed that every January 4th will be known as World Braille Day. Standard Braille was adopted as the official system for the blind in the US in 1918 by the Braille Authority of North America. Braille made all of this possible and is still changing lives to this day. As we are moving from books to computers, blind people are not left behind. Braille is also evolving with new technology like refreshable Braille. In refreshable Braille, the Braille display changes continuously as the user moves the cursor around.
And one of the new things in that demonstration is using of a sort of, it's a cross between optical character recognition and AI to read handwriting. Because at the moment, that's something that Braille people can't do. But I think that's the next frontier, is so that somebody can jot down a note, which can then be captured, perhaps just captured with a phone camera, and then run through that process, and then made into something machine readable, either by refreshable Braille that you can read, or voice activated technology.
Braille was one of the most revolutionary inventions in the world for a variety of reasons. It opened up the world of literacy to the visually impaired. It gave them the right to education. But how was it made possible? One boy took on the responsibility of creating a code that would allow blind people to read, write, and be allowed access to all of the rights that sighted people have. As humankind moves from books to advanced technology, we must ensure that blind people are not left behind again.